or
that 1 foot sort of spreading further downstream?
yes, that is that upstream 1 foot rise moving downstream from Derry Ashford to Piney Point, and that includes areas like the West Belt, Willcrest, and others in that section. The residents in that section of the bayou need to be prepared for rising water and additional structure flooding.
Do you have any information regarding the levy at the Omni Hotel there?
I do not know of a levee there. There might be some type of local flood wall there, but anything that happened at the Omni Hotel would have already happened on Sunday. The bayou at that location is down significantly from a record level, so anything that happened there happened already earlier in the weekend, or later in the weekend.
What other message do you have to residents who are watching right now?
So the question was, what other recommendations do I have for residents watching right now? For the first time probably since Saturday night, we are starting to see a glimmer of hope in what has happened. We are seeing recessions now on some of our watersheds. We are seeing water receding from areas, even away from our watersheds. While some of the watersheds continue to rise, the rises are not going to be significant. We're talking maximum 1 to 2 feet in some locations. Things are going to be getting better. They have gotten slightly better today. Tomorrow will be better. But I caution that due to the massive volume of water that has been dropped, it is going to take time for all this water to get out of here. And we are probably looking at least another 2 to 3 days where we will have flooding impacts across Harris County that's impacted the roadways, bridges, and structures, notwithstanding the Addicks and Barker reservoirs. That is a situation that is going to go on for the next several weeks and months. But for the rest of the county that is draining out, a lot of these impacts will begin to fall, and probably by Thursday and Friday, a lot of these areas will be lower. And I'd also like to mention 2 other watersheds. The Cedar Bayou in the eastern part of the county, there has been devastating flooding along that channel, and there is still significant flooding along Clear Creek. That's the southern part of the county, the border against Brazoria County and Galveston County. Those watersheds are beginning to crest and fall, but Clear Creek is a very slow falling watershed, and so it is going to take time for that water to get out of there. And with that, we will plan to have another briefing tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Thank you.
We've been listening to Jeff Lindner with Harris County Flood Control, who has been addressing the watersheds in the area. This includes all the creeks, all the bayous, all the tributaries of these creeks and bayous that have, in some cases, have fallen, in some cases are staying the same, and in some cases are rising. Now, one of the things he mentioned is that these releases that they're having to do from the reservoirs, from Addicks and Barker, Cypress reservoirs, necessary releases in order to maintain the structure of the dams that hold this tremendous amount of water behind it. There will be no additional flooding, he said, from the reservoirs to Derry Ashford. They'll stay the same, they won't drop. But he did warn that there will be rising water along Buffalo Bayou from Derry Ashford all the way out to Piney Point. That's in the Memorial Villages area. So people who have homes along Buffalo Bayou from Derry Ashford all the way down to Piney Point, and the tributaries of that, like Rummel Creek, can expect rising water that he said would impact, they like to call it structures, but what they're talking about is homes when they say structures, homes and other buildings along the bayou, that if you've already flooded, you can expect more water. And if you haven't flooded and you're along that section of the bayou, as I am and many of my neighbors and friends, we can expect the possibility of flooding to homes along the bayou from Derry Ashford all the way down to Piney Point, an area that is already inundated in some cases with water. So That's the warning tonight from Harris County Flood Control. Let me bring Justin in here. Justin, he was talking about these gauges. Can you explain more about these gauges that have failed, where they are and what they're for?
Yeah, I absolutely can. What they are, think of them as sort of like points along a line. And so what their job is to do is to read the actual amount of water that's within the bayou itself as it flows from one side to the other. And so what your hope is that you have, under normal circumstances, a fairly consistent number that flows as it moves from either west to east or east to west or whatever the direction of the flow is. The problem with this is that, and I actually just, Bill, a second ago, checked all of the gauges starting with Derry Ashford. So get this, Derry Ashford, West Beltway 8, which you already know is underwater.
Right.
San Felipe and Rummel Creek, excuse me. All four of those, which you said is a tributary that goes into it, each one of those stations is out of service right now.
In other words, the gauges
do not work anymore.
Because they were flooded. They were placed at a position that they hoped would be high enough.
Right. But clearly with, 30, 40 inches of rain, they got flooded out. Now, I'll tell you the same thing. Let's sort of change gears a little bit. Addicks and Barker Reservoir, same story. The flood control actually went in there to put in temporary gauges so that we can get some readings to get an idea of what the status is right now, because this is sort of like forecasting blind for flood control about how much water is in there. Are we rising? Are we falling? And I think Jeff put it best, put it a good way to sort of say that Derry Ashford's okay. But here's the latest gauge that we have from Piney Point. Notice that it sort of dips, but then the gauge just kind of levels out because there's no more gauge.
Yeah.
And so we have to.
We don't know what's happening.
No,
there.
so hopefully.
But he's warned us that it will rise tonight.
Right, which would, make sense given that it's all flowing east through the Buffalo Bayou at this point. So I don't think we can stress enough, especially, as you mentioned, for folks that are along any of these gauges, as I said, San Felipe, Derry Ashford, and then, of course, along Beltway 8, which we know has been, Jen Rainey was showing us earlier today, shut down.
Mentioned Willcrest as well.
Right, because it's underwater at this point. I think that's a concern. I can tell you that flipping it over onto the east side, where I live over in East Downtown, Buffalo, the bayou there near Jensen had risen up close to the walkway, but then this morning when we left, it was back down. And so we have a little wiggle room over there, but the problem is we have to get it from there to there, and I think that's where we're going to run into some problems.
You also mentioned.
But maybe it's because the bayou widens past Piney Point, because you still have all those communities east of Piney Point. Memorial continues all the way into 610, and then you've got Memorial Park along Buffalo Bayou as well. So I'm wondering why it is up into Piney Point, or this area of
My
concern.
guess is what they've been seeing is that you're getting an increased, they've probably had their engineers out there using manual gauges, just going one stop, go to the next place, let's see what it is, and then what's the difference between the two. And my guess is, Dominique, is that that section there, they've noticed that they're getting an increase in flow, and so that's probably their trouble spot. As you go a little further downstream, it may not have necessarily made it that far yet. Now, that's not to say that once that moves, let's go 24 hours from now, tomorrow evening, and we're not having a conversation where they're saying Piney Point to San Felipe, and San Felipe as we get a little closer in towards the loop. So I have to say, I think this is something we need to keep a very close watch on. I mean, there are an enormous amount of neighborhoods in this.
These two huge reservoirs out in the west part of the county were placed there to hold this kind of rainfall and to avoid all of this rainfall rushing at once down Buffalo Bayou into downtown Houston and devastating downtown Houston. That's why they're there. That's why those dams are there.
Their job is to make downtown Houston remain downtown Houston and not a swamp.
But to protect those dams, to protect those dams from failing, they have to release the water and release the pressure behind those dams. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, and we touched on this last night too. There's some confusion of what people think when they think about what the Addicks and the Barker reservoirs are. If you think, and actually, Frank, this may be something we can do if you've got the graphic. I don't know if I have it in my show. We put together a really interesting graphic about that. I'll have to find it, so I'll just kind of talk you through it, and then we'll have.
I see Frank looking for it.
Yeah, well, it kind of gives you a good visual. A lot of folks seem to think that it's okay. Well, it's a big lake. It's not. It's a wall. It's actually just a wall that's built, and the water hits that wall. Now, it's going to backsplash just like it would at the seawall. The seawall hits the wall, and it kind of goes back and, back and forth. The problem is that we've had so much water is that if it continues to hit up against that wall eventually,
Intensity of it.
it will go over.
Here's your graphic.
Here we go. Right. Thank you very much, guys.
Yep.
So this is what Frank was talking about. This is what we discussed all last night. We have a wall. We have a wall. All that water is coming down. And so, you have to allow that wall to remain a wall, because if it doesn't, then the problem is that all of this across the bayou here it could be inundated with water.
And it's going to be surreal for the people who live along these communities and those who have chosen to stay.
Absolutely.
Because it just goes to show that the impact of the bayou doesn't always have to do with the weather above. And they're going to see the sun out, and yet they're going to see the bayou rise at the
Right.
same time.
Yeah, which is
We'll keep a
terrifying.
close eye on it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll visit it again this evening. Troy Campbell from our sister station in Orlando, and we've had 3 or 4 reporters here come and try and spell our reporters, is joining us now from the Holiday Lakes neighborhood.
Yeah, that's in Brazoria County. Thank you very much for being with us, Troy.
Yeah, it's a little windy out here. We're on FM 521. And there's this entrance into the Holiday Lakes neighborhood. There's some people who say they live in that neighborhood, and they said they had a mandatory evacuation on Friday. So they got out. But now they're out here, and they're worried about some of their neighbors in there. But there's some difficulties even getting into the area. So this gentleman over here, you had just gone in there with your jet ski.
Yes,
So kind of tell me, what is it that you saw?
just whenever you first roll in, there's some houses on the right. It's about 5 foot deep going down the road. And the starting point's about, I don't know, about 12 inches deep. Then it gets 5 foot deep a few times. Then the bridge is under. And there's a few houses down there on the right, and some deep into the left. And once you get down to the hitching posts, I mean, there's some dry spots of concrete where you got to ride the ditch a little bit, and you pretty much got to push after that. And then you ride down a little deeper, and they went down there in the boat and went over there and got a guy from the house. I guess he had to pick up some stuff. And there's another boat out there, a little mud boat. They're going to get 4 people out right now, but it's about 3 miles down there.
And that's something that we had heard, or that I had heard from another, the couple that had been out there. They said that it's deep, right? So you can have your boats,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden they described it as a bridge, saying there's no water on that. And then it goes back to being deep again.
Yes.
So now you guys with the boats and the jet skis and trying to get in there, you can't get any watercraft in there, but you can't get any ground vehicles in there either. And I know this gentleman, there's a gentleman standing over here who says he's worried about his neighbors with 6 people he was bringing up. So, and now you lost some sunlight. So I guess what's your plan going forward?
Pretty much have to wait till the morning unless you got a bunch of lights and you can get through real shallow areas to try to go back there all the way to see where you can go to see if anybody's home or if they want to leave. But some of them said they don't want to leave till the morning because they don't know if the waters are receding or if it's going to rise or not.
And I watched you when you headed out right at sunset. So it got dark pretty fast while you were out there.
Yeah, dark
That's a challenge. And there was a guy who was on a canoe. I'm not sure if you saw when he came back.
Yeah.
He had been not answering his friend's calls for about 3 hours. So they were getting nervous out here too. He came back. He's okay. So the darkness now and everything, and all the curves and everything to go around that you're describing with these neighborhoods. So into the night.
Just look at your phone and watch the navigation. Follow the middle of the road. And sometimes you just kick off to the side depending on if it gets shallow or not. Ride the ditches and use your phone as a light or a flashlight, and you can see your way out.
And try to go back in tomorrow.
We go back in tomorrow, or we might head down to the river, the San Bernard, because down 244, my parents live down there, so we're going to check them out and see how they're doing.
And you said the houses. There's a gentleman also on one of the boats. He told me that his mom and dad had a house. They don't live in there anymore, but they said last year they experienced the same flooding in there. So he's saying it's up to their chest. The houses you saw before you get to that bridge where you can't go any further, the level of the water?
It's probably, there's a house about midway in the windows in that area right there. So it's probably about 5-6 foot deep. So,
and that's not counting once you actually, because technically no one has gotten in to the Holiday Lakes neighborhood.
Not from this side that I'm aware of.
And all because of the obstacles that you guys are learning. And you guys are all, just regular people heading out, right?
Yes,
So,
sir.
and there's even more of them, and I want to show that. And Jeff, if we can show that, is just all these cars parked one after another. It's like, and one will pull up, and other people will say, "Look, more of our cavalry is here." Just, you know, neighbors, friends, family, just coming out here. There's probably, how many boats do you think are out here? A dozen.
Probably a good 9 or 10 boats.
And there was 4 when we first got out here, but just everyone's out here just kind of looking to see what it is they can do, including this man over here. He realized he has to register a boat to do it. So listening to you guys coordinate what you're going to do as if you were a trained law enforcement rescue, it really just shows that you guys are doing your best to get this done. And
yeah, we're just waiting for phone calls if we got to get horses out or whatever they call and say we need to do. We just try to help everybody.
You'll be there
out.
to help. Well, we're going to keep our eye, again, before we let you go, we're going to keep our eye down here. So this is the stretch of roadway. So it's a good 2 miles that we can actually see before, you know, a next boat will come in. We'll keep our eye on this. And again, a lot of people who were out here bringing their boats in now, just saying because of the dark, they are bringing up. One gentleman did tell me he did see a gator out there. So what they're going to do is they're just going to wait it out to the morning. And then obviously there's still some people here who they're not leaving until the person they're looking for comes up here to the dry road. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Troy, thanks. That's Troy Campbell with our sister station in Orlando. You may have noticed him cheating up real close to his interviewee, and that's because he doesn't have a stick mic. He only has the mic that he's wearing on his lapel, so he had to get close to him so that we could hear what the fellow was saying.
Or he's just friendly.
It may have looked strange, but that's why he was doing
That's why.
it. Yeah.
We do want to let you know KPRC is teaming up with Telemundo Houston and the Red Cross to help those impacted by Harvey.
Tomorrow and then Thursday, the next day, from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., volunteers are going to be taking donations in our phone bank right here in the studio next door to us. You'll be able to call in tomorrow and Thursday to donate, or you can donate right now by going to our community section at click2houston.com and search our KPRC app.
A lot of people donating in person at many shelters and areas that are taking donations and volunteers, and one of those would be Lakewood Church.
Yes, Anusha Rasta is there. Anusha, we were talking to Pastor Joel a little while ago.
That's right, guys, and we've seen hundreds of people coming into the church to donate everything from pillows, blankets, soap, deodorant, toys for kids, clothing. A lot of generous Houstonians coming out here to help. Now, we understand that a lot of people have been displaced from their homes and also separated from their families during this very historic and tragic weather event that we've been seeing in the Houston area these past few days. And I want to share a story with all of our viewers and try to get their help, if they can help, for this person you're about to see. Let's roll the video. This gentleman's name is Terry Gifford. He is 90 years old, and he was separated from his family and displaced from his home due to the flooding and due to the storms. And so Terry is in need of medical services. He is sick. He was here at Lakewood Church not too long ago, but paramedics came to take him to Houston Northwest Medical Center. Now, Terry Gifford is looking to find his daughter. Her name is Sandra. He says he does not remember her last name, but her name is Sandra, and she is from Porter, Texas. If you recognize Terry Gifford, if you know him or his family or his daughter Sandra, please reach out to Houston Northwest Hospital. You can call the hospital's general line. I believe we have the number on our screen right now. You can call them up and tell them that you are trying to get in touch with Terry Gifford and that you know this older gentleman, that you have a way to help him connect with his daughter. Again, his daughter's name is Sandra, and she is from Porter, Texas. And I spoke a little bit with Terry today. He was obviously very nervous and very devastated about the fact that he's been separated from his family, and you know, he wasn't feeling too well. And of course, we want to do our best to try and help him, like so many of you out there who have been having trouble connecting with your family members. We understand, we feel for you. And again, if anybody out there recognizes this man, please you can reach out to me as well. I believe my email address is on your screen right now. Please reach out to me. I can get in touch with the hospital, and we can try to help this man find his family. Now, I want to walk around and talk to some folks who are here at the church, some volunteers who have been offering their time You are with Lakewood Church, ma'am, correct? And you've been here volunteering your time and trying to help folks out. Talk to us a little bit about, you know, the outpouring of support that you've seen here.
Well, we came here like around 5 o'clock because as we are kind of like blessed.
Entire cabinet, and what that does, it allows the president to hear how the government's response as a whole is going and to hear how Harvey is impacting specific sectors such as transportation and energy production as well as manufacturing. First and foremost, though, the priority for both the administration and state and local officials is to protect those and to rescue those that are in the storm's path. And this morning at Camp David, the president tried to reassure the country that the federal government is fully engaged, tweeting, "Wow, now experts are calling Harvey a once-in-500-year flood. We have an all-out effort going and going well." And as the search and rescue efforts are in high gear, the president later suggested that he may delay his trip to Texas to avoid distracting from those efforts, tweeting, "I will be going to Texas as soon as that trip can be made without causing disruption. The focus must be life and safety." And on Fox News Sunday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott praised the administration's response and said so far,
need of immediate assistance. People need help, and we are working to provide it.
We're anticipating over 30,000 people being placed in temporarily to basically save lives. You could not draw this forecast up. You could not dream this forecast up. It's a very challenging effort for the National Weather Service, who's been putting out great information. We've been telling people that this is coming. It's still ongoing, but you couldn't draw this situation up.
As I noted, Houston is in a lull right now, but we'll get back into the moderate to heavy rains later today and then into tomorrow, and we'll see how long that lasts. It all depends on that track. And there's about a 15 to 20 inch rainfall still forecast associated with that max. The flooding will be very slow to recede. We are seeing catastrophic flooding. And this will likely expand and will likely persist.
in silt. Obviously, that's where the waters had gone to, and so they've receded down here. But if you go back and look, it is still a veritable ocean here in front, specifically in front of the Omni Hotel. We also had a chance to speak with Chief Art Acevedo. Unfortunately, still no updates on Jill Rennick. That is the young lady who disappeared while helping to evacuate more than 100 people from the Omni at the height of this storm. One of the other things that you had mentioned that came out of speaking with both Chief Art Acevedo and Mayor Sylvester Turner is that curfew. Originally, the mayor had said the curfew would be 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. About an hour after that announcement, he modified it from midnight to 5 a.m. because he said he wanted to give volunteers and all those helping people who've been affected by Harvey a little more time on the road. Now, the reason that they came up with this, the reason the mayor said that he was issuing this executive order is twofold. One, everybody's been talking about the skies are clear. That is a wonderful thing. But the mayor and even the police chief and fire chief are concerned that people think, oh, skies are clear, this is over. It is far from over, and that lake of water shows you that it is far from over. So the mayor doesn't want people out on the road because at night, and trust me, I speak from experience, it's incredibly hard to see these very deep pools of water that are on the road until you're pretty much in there. So he doesn't want people out on the road because there's still a lot of pockets of high water around, still a lot of debris around as well. The other reason, too, is they are getting reports of people looting and armed robberies, and they believe the curfew will really cut down on that type of a problem in the area. When I asked the chief, how many incidents of looting have you had, not sure at this time, but they do know that it has happened at least in some spots. So they believe that the curfew will really help with that. Matter of fact, the mayor had referenced that a similar curfew was put in place after Ike, and it really did help cut down on some of the looting and the robberies and the people who've already been victimized enough getting re-victimized by those who prey on the less fortunate. So those are the reasons for the curfew. The curfew will remain in effect until further notice, until the city is returned to some type of normality in the area. In matter of fact, the dangerous conditions are one of the things that the chief talked about today. Very emotional talk with Chief Acevedo earlier when he was reporting on the death of Sergeant Steve Perez. Now, Sergeant Perez was a 34-year veteran of the Houston Police Department, 2 days shy of his 61st birthday. He left about 4 a.m., left his home about 4 a.m. on Sunday. As many of you know, as many of you know, that was really when Harvey was hitting the area. He was scheduled to report to 61 Reasoner. For those of you who've been around a while, 61 Reasoner was the old police headquarters before it moved to Travis Street in downtown. It's now Central Command. Sergeant Perez was with traffic enforcement. That's in the downtown area near Houston Avenue. So he was trying to get there, couldn't get there, kept calling in saying, I'm trying to find an alternate route, I'm trying to find an alternate route. For 2.5 solid hours, Sergeant Perez tried to report for duty. That is how dedicated that this gentleman was. He couldn't make it. After 2.5 hours, he finally called his chain of command and said, look, I'm just not going to be able to get into downtown. Where can I go to still help out? He was told, try and make it to the Kingwood station. There's help needed up in the Kingwood station. That was really about the last contact anybody had with him. So the police department was able to somewhat track his last location to an intersection of the Hardy and Beltway 8. And if any of you have been through that area, you know that underpass is amazingly steep. Matter of fact, the mayor was saying it was about 16.5 feet of water under that pass there, the Hardy and Beltway 8. They couldn't get in because the conditions were too dangerous until this morning. Finally, members of HPD's dive team were able to get in, and they found Sergeant Perez. One thing that Chief Acevedo said, that when he was speaking with Sergeant Perez's wife, she had said she begged him not to go in. Even his father-in-law, who was a Korean War veteran, a combat veteran, had said, look, conditions are too bad. Please don't try and go in right now. Try and wait just a little bit for a break. According to his wife and his father-in-law, Sergeant Perez says, no, I have work to do. I'm going to get in. I'm going to help the people of Houston. And unfortunately, that dedication did wind up costing him his life. But the chief and the mayor said that his life will be honored, that once the city is somewhat restored, that there will be a funeral and an honoring of Sergeant Perez's life. So still very dangerous conditions out here. Thankfully, skies are clear. We're not seeing any more pounding rain, but the problems are far from over. Matter of fact, the mayor said that at last count, there were about 10,000 people at the George R. Brown. They are now going to the Toyota Center to try and reduce the population of the George R. Brown. They're not opening the Toyota Center to take in new evacuees, but to try and reduce the population. The mayor's also been working working with FEMA to get as many housing assistance people from FEMA into these shelters, including the GRB, so people can start filing their claims to start transitioning somewhat back to a normal life, trying to rebuild their lives from all the devastation here. Reporting live from near Uptown, Robert Arnold, KPRC, Channel 2 News.
All right, Robert, thank you. First burst of sunlight that we saw today about 5:30 in Sergeant Pettis' honor.
When Sergeant Pettis took that oath, he took that to heart.
He took it to heart, as all of our police officers did.
That's right.
For many spots, boats have replaced cars as the primary means of transportation.
Channel 2's Bill Spencer spoke with somebody during a rescue who was using his boat as a lifeline for hundreds of victims.
Yeah, this is Bill Spencer. We are in the Briar Hills neighborhood right now, and we are with Captain Victor Burton. He has been picking up people all day long since about 11:30 today. Victor, tell me, how many folks you think you've rescued?
250 people.
Wow.
On both sides.
Emotionally?
Well, they was kind of emotionally and stressed out because they didn't know how they were going to get out.
Yeah.
And until they seen me, they was very happy. You know, and I told them, don't waste no time. Let's get up out of here. And we got mostly elderly people that was kind of handicapped, got them out. And
you got one couple that was in walkers, right?
Yeah, it was a couple. One was on a walker, and one he barely could walk. So we had to, you know, accommodate him and get him on the boat and situated.
Let me just interrupt you. I want people just to see where we're going through, Victor. So take a look, Adrian, over here to the left. You will see, folks, that we are traveling through what is a shopping center. I mean, this is we got the Holiday Inn, we got the Bank One right over here. We got Chipotle. I mean, this is a shopping center that is now completely underwater. Any idea how deep the water is here?
All the areas I've been working, the water been mostly about 6 to 7 feet deep.
And the challenges you face going through here, Victor, you're risking...
It was rough. It was rough. It was pretty rough, but, you know, that didn't bother me because, you know, I want to save people and get people out of here as fast as possible.
Sure.
And the main thing you want to do is get them out of here before dark.
Right.
Because, you know, a lot of boaters that came in today don't have lights on their boats.
Right.
And wasn't really set up for night, you know, survival. And
tell people about the current here. It's pretty strong in spots, correct?
Well, we have a very, very strong current because we have the bayou that's behind us, and the bayou run off the reservoir, off the Addicks Reservoir, and I think they might have opened it. I'm not sure, you know. Don't take me, you know. But we got a lot of current coming in the back. That's why when we were back there, we had a little trouble with me controlling the boat. But we didn't want to stay back there too long because I don't want to jeopardize you guys' lives and my life. You know, it's bad if the captain go down and you got 2 people on here don't know what to do.
Wait, what do you do in your normal life when you're not trying to save people?
Well, when I'm not saving people or working in the community, you know, I'm one of Houston's finest comedians.
Okay.
And I also work at the post office, you know.
At the post office?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The river has peaked, and it is beginning a slow fall. The other important gauge on the San Jacinto River at Highway 90 Sheldon has also failed. So we do not have any indication right now if the lower portion of the San Jacinto River is rising or falling. The river has overtopped I-10, as we were thinking it would, and there is a large amount of flow passing through that section of the river. Based on forecasts from the River Forecast Center, both the West Fork and the lower portion of the San Jacinto Continental Airport, Greens Bayou at Lay Road, South Mady Creek at Greenhouse, and Bear Creek at Clay. And with that, I'll take any additional questions on the situation across the county, Buffalo Bayou, or any other of the things we've discussed. It's not going to fall. It's going to hold steady. The section that we are concerned about potential rise tonight is from Derry Ashford to Piney Point. Or
is that 1 foot sort of spreading further downstream?
Yes, that is that upstream 1 foot rise moving downstream from Derry Ashford to Piney Point, and that includes areas like the West Belt, Willcrest, and others in that section. The residents in that section of the bayou need to be prepared for rising water and additional structure flooding.
Do you have any information regarding the levee
I do not know of a levee there. There might be some type of local flood wall there, but anything that happened at the Omni Hotel would have already happened on Sunday. The bayou at that location is down significantly from a record level, so anything that happened there happened already earlier in the weekend, or later in the weekend.
What other message do you have to residents who are watching right now?
So the question was, what other recommendations do I have for residents watching right now? For the first time probably since Saturday night, we are starting to see a glimmer of hope in what has happened. We are seeing recessions now on some of our watersheds. We are seeing water receding from areas, even away from our watersheds. While some of the watersheds continue to rise, the rises are not going to be significant. We're talking maximum 1 to 2 feet in some locations. Things are going to be getting better. They have gotten slightly better today. Tomorrow will be better. But I caution that due to the massive volume of water that has been dropped, it is going to take time for all this water to get out of here. And we are probably looking at least another 2 to 3 days where we will have flooding impacts across Harris County that's impacted the roadways, bridges, and structures, notwithstanding the Addicks and Barker reservoirs. That is a situation that is going to go on for the next several weeks and months. But for the rest of the county that is draining out, a lot of these impacts will begin to fall, and probably by Thursday and Friday, a lot of these areas will be lower. And I'd also like to mention 2 other watersheds. The Cedar Bayou in the eastern part of the county, there has been devastating flooding along that channel, and there is still significant flooding along Clear Creek. That's the southern part of the county, the border against Brazoria County and Galveston County. Those watersheds are beginning to crest and fall, but Clear Creek is a very slow falling watershed, and so it is going to take time for that water to get out of there. And with that, we will plan to have another briefing tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Thank you.
Derry Ashford, and then of course along Beltway 8, which we know has been, Jen Rainey was showing us earlier today, shut down.
Mentioned Willcrest as well.
Right, because it's underwater at this point. I think that's a concern. I can tell you that flipping it over onto the east side, where I live over in East Downtown, Buffalo, the bayou there near Jensen had risen up close to the walkway, but then this morning when we left, it was back down. And so we have a little wiggle room over there, but the problem is, we have to get it from there to there, and I think that's where we're going to run into some problems.
You also mentioned.
But
so this is what Frank was talking about. This is what we saw last night. We have a wall. We have a wall. All that water is coming down, and so you allow that wall to remain a wall, because if it doesn't, then the problem is that all of this across the bayou here could be inundated with water.
And it's going to be surreal for the people who live along these communities and those who have chosen to stay. Absolutely. Because it just goes to show that the impact of the bayou doesn't always have to do with the weather above. And they're going to see the sun out, and yet they're going to see the bayou rise at the same time.
Yeah, which is
we'll keep a close eye on it. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll visit it again this evening.
Entrance into the Holiday Lakes neighborhood. There's some people who say they live in that neighborhood, and they said they had a mandatory evacuation on Friday, so they got out. But now they're out here and they're worried about some of their neighbors in there, but there's some difficulties even getting into the area. So this gentleman over here, you had just gone in there with your jet ski. Yes, so kind of tell me, what is it that you saw?
Just whenever you first roll in, there's some houses on the right. It's about 5 foot deep going down the road, and the starting point's about, I don't know, about 12 inches deep. Then it gets 5 foot deep a few times, then the bridge is under, and there's a few houses down there on the right, and some deep into the left. And once you get down to the hitching posts, I mean, there's some dry spots of concrete where you got to ride the ditch a little bit, and you pretty much got to push after that. And then you ride down a little deeper, and they went down there in the boat and went over there and got a guy from the house. I guess he had to pick up some stuff. And there's another boat out there, a little mud boat. They're going to get 4 people out right now, but it's about 3 miles down there.
And that's something that we had heard, or that I had heard from another, the couple that had been out there. They said that it's deep, right? So you can have your boats, yes. And then all of a sudden they described it as a bridge, saying there's no water on that. And then it goes back to being deep again. Yes. So now you guys with the boats and the jet skis and trying to get in there, you can't get any watercraft in there, but you can't get any ground vehicles in there either. And I know this gentleman, there's a gentleman standing over here who says he's worried about his neighbors with 6 people he was bringing up. So, and now you lost some sunlight. So I guess what's your plan going forward?
Pretty much have to wait till the morning unless you got a bunch of lights and you can get through real shallow areas to try to go back there all the way to see where you can go to see if anybody's home or if they want to leave. But some of them said they don't want to leave till the morning because they don't know if the waters are receding or if it's going to rise or not.
And I watched you when you headed out right at sunset. So it got dark pretty fast while you were out there. Yeah, that's a challenge. And there was a guy who was on a canoe. I'm not sure if you saw when he came back. Yeah. He had been not answering his friend's calls for about 3 hours. So they were getting nervous out here too. He came back. He's okay. So the darkness now and everything and all the curves and everything to go around that you're describing with these neighborhoods. So into the night.
Just look at your phone and watch the navigation. Follow the middle of the road. And sometimes you just kick off to the side depending on if it gets shallow or not, ride the ditches and use your phone as a light or a flashlight and you can see your way out.
And try to go back in tomorrow.
Go back in tomorrow, or we might head down to the river, the San Bernard, because down 244, my parents live down there, so we're going to check them out and see how they're doing.
And you said the houses, there was a gentleman also on one of the boats. He told me that his mom and dad had a house. They don't live in there anymore, but they said last year they experienced the same flooding in there, so he's saying it's up to their chest. The houses you saw before you get to that bridge where you can't go any further, the level of the water?
It's probably, there's a house about midway in the windows in that area right there, so it's probably about 5-6 foot deep. So
and that's not counting once you actually, because technically no one has gotten in to the Holiday Lakes neighborhood.
Not from this side that I'm aware of.
And all because of the obstacles that you guys are learning, and you guys are all, you know, just regular people heading out, right? Yes, so sir. And there's even more of them, and I want to show that. And Jeff, if we can show that, is just all these cars parked one after another. It's like, and one will pull up, and other people will say, "Look, more of our cavalry is here." Just, you know, neighbors, friends, family, just coming out here. There's probably, how many boats do you think are out here? A dozen.
Probably a good 9 or 10 boats.
And there was 4 when we first got out here, but just everyone's out here just kind of looking to see what it is they can do, including this man over here. He realized he has to register a boat to do it. So listening to you guys coordinate what you're going to do as if you were a trained law enforcement rescue, it really just shows that you guys are doing your best to get this done. And
yeah, we're just waiting for phone calls if we got to get horses out or whatever they call and say we need to do. We just try to help everybody.
You'll be there
out
to help. Well, we're going to keep our eye, again, before we let you go, we're going to keep our eye down here. So this is the stretch of roadway. So it's a good 2 miles that we can actually see before, you know, a next boat will come in. We'll keep our eye on this. And again, a lot of people who were out here bringing their boats in now, just saying because of the dark, they are bringing up. One gentleman did tell me he did see a gator out there. So what they're going to do is they're just going to wait it out to the
So all of those things are needed, and hopefully this is a warm, welcoming environment. Nobody likes to be in a shelter, you know, sleeping right next to all kinds of people. And we've got family area, they've got family area, men's area, women's area, and so it's like I said, I was pretty blown away when I saw just what that group could do.
Is there a phone number that maybe people watching them might be able to call or kind of, you know?
We'll post it on Ready Harris.
We'll post it on readyharris.org. Like I said, this thing got stood up in about 5.5 hours.
So would you recommend that people go there instead of The GRVs?
Yes.
Even if they have medical needs?
Yes.
So there will be medical help there for people?
Yes. Now, if you're talking about severe medical, I mean, you know, if you're just talking about, and in fact, there's nearby, there is a more serious medical shelter that hopefully people would know about. If you were being referred by a doctor and they would send you to this other area that we're not really publicizing a whole lot because, you know, we don't want people to use that as an ER.
And Judge, you were saying this is the largest shelter to open so far?
Yes.
And it was put together in a matter of just 5.5 hours?
Well, the planning started this morning, but when I said, how long would it take you to actually set it up, Ms. Blanchard and the team at Baker Ripley said 6 hours. And I said, you know, we see it over and over and over, whether you're talking about rescue, and rescue is so much more dramatic, if you will, and high stress. The purpose of a shelter is to lower stress. It's to say, look, you're safe. You know, we've got you.
People want to know if they want to donate or volunteer, if they just show up, it's okay? Is that okay?
Volunteers can show up, and it's on the west entrance door. It says volunteer entrance.
Judge, talk a little bit, Ramona, sort of what you're feeling in this moment, because you're answering that last question, you helped a little bit, like you got a little, I don't know if it's sleep deprivation or if it's
Well, there is some of that.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, in times of a crisis like this, everybody's all focused on, like was said, you know, it's high stress. And so to be able to call an organization like Baker Ripley and put them together with the county professionals that I can't say enough about what they've done, and to work with the city certainly played a role in this too, and then to be able to go out and see people who are smiling and they're happy and they're ready, and I know there are going to be some long nights, but they all understand, and Ms. Blanchard made it real clear. If we don't have evacuees, they're guests or their neighbors. That's the only term that will be used out there, because everybody knows the circumstance. But at the end of the day, these are all our neighbors or they're our guests, because you know, there could be some that come from outside of Harris County who got stranded here. And, you know, to be able to warmly welcome people and to take care of them and to have that number of volunteers, I mean, that's just overwhelming. It really is. So I'll probably go back out there sometime during the night just to see how it's going. And by the way, some of the volunteers called, and I want to thank Mayor Turner for adjusting his curfew, because we're going to open at 10, and some of the volunteers were going, well, gee, there's a curfew. And I called Mayor Turner, and within a matter of minutes, he had adjusted the curfew to exempt volunteers and to exempt people who are seeking shelter, and to make it 12 to 5 instead of starting at 10 o'clock. And another example of, I think, the city and the county being able to work together. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Harris County Judge Ed Emmett wrapping up a news conference. The big bullet point here from this news conference: they have opened another shelter that will hold 10,000 people. It is at Energy Park. Now, we're not talking about the stadium. We're talking about the building that's there adjacent to the stadium, where the livestock show and rodeo has much of its activities, including the vendors.
All the vendors are there.
Where the kids go to look at the petting zoo and all that kind of stuff. So, and what he did was brilliant, really.
Yes.
He gave credit where credit was due. He knew that his predecessor, Harris County Judge Robert Eccles, and former Houston Mayor Bill White had worked together to open up the Astrodome for all of the evacuees from Katrina.
That's right.
All those people, they welcomed them into Houston. They came into our Astrodome. And since they already knew logistically how to set up this kind of thing, he asked them both if they would come together again and help with this. And in 5.5 hours, they
whipped it up. And, you know, and they looped in former Houston Mayor Anise Parker. And Judge Emmett even said, you will find Anise Parker, Robert Eccles, and Bill White all there tonight. They've been working on making signs so that people know what to do, where to go. They have a children's
food,
play
medical,
area,
play area, pets, everything.
For $10,000.
I wish I could remember the name of it, because the former Mayor Anise Parker is with what used to be neighborhood centers, and now it's some Ripley's.
Ripley House?
No, it's not Ripley House, but it's something Ripley. But it's we've always known it as neighborhood centers, and so she's with that organization now, and the former neighborhood centers has contributed to setting up this this big facility there at the NRG. What do they call that? NRG Center. So if you go to the Livestock Show and Rodeo, you know the building that we're talking about. So they're going to be able to hold 10,000 people beginning at 10 o'clock at night.
30 minutes.
Judge said that there have been people, you know, evacuees sitting on buses all day long.
Can you imagine?
Waiting for someplace to go. The Brown Convention Center set up to hold 5,000, now has 10,000, so it was full, taking over Florida Toyota. So, you know, Judge Ed Emmett said, let's open up. The county controls the, you know, that NRG center, so they've opened that up, and they'll start. I hope we've got cameramen going out there so we can take a look at the buses.
I would venture to say we probably
Yeah.
do, and you know they'll be in need of the same assistance that all of these other shelters have needed as well. And as the night moves on, we will stay up to date, and of course let you know if there's anything you can do over at NRG, what assistance they might need. But they said first and foremost, the minute those folks get off of the buses, tired and weary, that probably the first thing they need to do is go to the bathroom, and then after that,
get something to eat and get to
something
bed,
and then get right into a FEMA processing, so they can get that process started to get out of a shelter, because that's what Judge Ed Emmett was saying. It's uncomfortable. No matter what they're trying to do to make this as pleasant of an experience as they can, nobody wants to stay in a shelter.
Absolutely not. And it's meant to be temporary. It's meant to transition into something else. And to the point about the volunteers, they're being accepted tonight too. If you want to volunteer, you can go down to the NRG Center and volunteer tonight. There'll be, he thought that 5,000 would be there by the morning. Half the capacity of 10,000 would be there by morning. So they need volunteers. They need stuff that you can bring that you know that people normally need. Clothing, the large, extra large clothing is what they were asking for at Brown. So probably
clothing,
here too. Comfort clothing. Toys for kids, all that kind of stuff, because they got a kid area and a pet area. So if you got pet food, bring that too, because they're definitely going to be needing that for the pets. This is at the NRG Center. Ed Emmett has brought together Robert Eccles and Bill White, who set up the dome for the Katrina victims. They've set it up in 5.5 hours. It's ready to roll in 30 minutes from right now.
Absolutely genius.
Yeah.
Genius. We have been relying on teams from outside of the Houston area, our media teams, our sister station in Jacksonville. They sent a reporter, Vic Michelucci, from there is at BBVA.
It is, Bill and Dominique, good evening to you, and this is really incredible. I've heard people describe this as organized chaos, and that is a good thing, because it is certainly madness here, but it is just such a great thing to see the community coming together. And you're going to see so much in the next couple of minutes. All of this came together in just a couple of hours. So we're going to bring in Zach Emmons, and you are with the Houston Dynamo. Thank you for joining us and standing by with us. Zach, you helped organize this, and you said 2-3 hours. That's all it took to get all of this behind us.
Yeah, everything that you see here came together really since about 6:30 this evening. Our leadership team reached out to the Red Cross, said, how can we help? And you called it a organized chaos. That's because of the overwhelming generosity of the people of Houston. We overflowed what the GRB could take, and they said we need help collecting donations, sorting them, helping to distribute them to everywhere else. So we were able to open up our stadium, and as soon as the word went out, there was a line around the block, people were just itching to give. Volunteers have just showed up out of the woodwork. We had probably 30 volunteers when we started, and we saw people just getting out of their cars, donating items, and then saying, "Can I stay and help?" and just walking in and helping. So it's come out of nowhere, but this is amazing.
Yeah, and it really shows the spirit of people here in South Texas. Let's start from scratch, because earlier I was at the Toyota Center, went by the GRB, and we saw a lot of people coming by there with just bags of stuff that they wanted to donate. They didn't really know necessarily where to go. So if you could explain to everybody what the point of this center is. It's basically the hub.
I would say we're an auxiliary collection center. We've helped out, and so is Toyota Center, with the overflow from the GRB. We've just kind of shut down taking donations tonight. We'll be open again tomorrow morning. We'll start having volunteers at 7, asking for people to show up around 8 o'clock. But our role here is to collect donations, sort them, get them on pallets so that then the Red Cross can distribute them to all the Red Cross facilities throughout the greater Houston area. It's not just the GRB, it's not just downtown, it's the whole area, the whole region that needs help.
Yeah, and the people behind us right now that we're showing on camera have just been working so hard, and they've been doing it with smiles on their faces, and that's really incredible. Zach, thank you. If you could stand by, we got a couple more questions for you, but we're going to bring in Lady. That is your name, Lady.
My name.
And you said that you were a volunteer here, but I'm going to call you an executive volunteer, because you seem to be taking charge. Yeah, you seem to be kind of the boss lady here, so to speak.
It just kind of happened. I came as a regular volunteer, and I just kind of got told to do more stuff, and so I got nominated to actually help more than I thought I was, but I'm happy to do it, and it's no problem. Everybody here, we're from Houston, we help each other. We are here to help each other.
And you came up to me with a list of some do's and don'ts for donating and volunteering here.
For donating, we are accepting donations tomorrow morning, but if you could sort the donations, like itemize them, say a bag of clothes, a bag of bags, a bag of food, to where we don't have to sort things out so much, that would be grateful. We would be really grateful and thankful for that as well. We need baby food, we need diapers, we need cat litter, we need things like that. We need onesies, clean plus size clothing. We don't need any regular size clothing as of right now, but we need a lot of plus size clothing, medical supplies, wheelchairs, new underwear. I can't stress that enough. New underwear, all different sizes, disposable cat litter boxes, puppy food and puppy pads, and shoes would also help.
Yeah, and we're looking at a mountain of bedding here, and we really can't stress this enough that if you're going to make a donation, if you're going to take the time and make the effort, make sure that it's clean, make sure that it's wearable, because if not, you're really just bogging down the volunteers.
Exactly. We don't want to waste man hours on sorting through things that we can't give to the people here at the shelter. It's kind of wasting everybody's time, but we are grateful for anything you donate, no matter what.
And let's talk about the volunteers, the people that are coming by here.
Yeah. I mean, some people, like he said, people have come to donate things and then they just stay. They see that we actually need people. People are sitting here, coming in here saying, well, we've been flooded in and we didn't know how else to help. And they just stayed. So it's been quite amazing.
Mm-hmm. And you've made it a family affair. You brought, was that your son?
My son and my boyfriend are over there waiting for me.
Okay. Well, Lady, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got a lot of work to do. We appreciate it. Thank you for giving back to the community.
Thank you guys for coming.
Zach, got a couple more questions for you, because you're the logistics guy. You're in charge of PR for the Houston Dynamo. Now you're in charge for PR for this center. So tell me what people need to know, because I heard them talking about 7 a.m. That's really the start time tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll start taking volunteers at 7 o'clock in the morning. Do us a favor, if you want to volunteer, please go to the GRB first, though. Get checked in, and they'll send you over here. We talked about folks just showing up. We appreciate it, but the Red Cross really wants to make sure they know who's volunteering so they can keep things as orderly as possible. If you want to bring stuff out, do us a favor, start coming out around 8 o'clock or so in the morning. Give us a little bit of a chance to take all of this, get it on pallets. We're going to basically replicate this entire scene over here on the other side of the stadium tomorrow. All this will get put on pallets and shipped out to other parts of Houston, and we'll collect more on the other side of the building.
And this isn't a small stadium, so that's certainly impressive. I mean, I was taken aback when you brought me in here. I saw some stuff, and I'm like, okay, Zach, this is pretty cool. And then we came into this concourse, and I was blown away.
Oh, when I walked in here, I got here a few minutes late because it took me a little bit to get to the stadium, and there was already stuff all throughout the concourse. So I was blown away when I saw it. And I keep telling people this is what makes you love Houston. It's the people, the spirit of the people in the city. You know, they're so willing to give, so willing to volunteer. Anything that they can do to help has been just amazing and so inspiring throughout the weekend.
And we're tied to just one spot, but Jason, our photographer, can show us further down the concourse. You'll just see people as far as the eye can see. I mean, there's probably hundreds of volunteers in here.
Yeah, easily hundreds of volunteers. I mean, it's the length of a soccer field, the length of a football field, full of things that people have donated. Like Lady said, if you're bringing stuff tomorrow, new, clean clothes are really important, clean towels, medical supplies like she talked about, baby food, formula, baby clothes, diapers. Those are the things that are really important. Those are the things that they really need. We've got a lot of really good clothing, but those things, the baby food, baby formula, diapers, towels, things like that are what they really need the most of right now.
What about non-perishable food items or water? Is that something that's being taken in here?
Yeah, we've been collecting water, non-perishable food items as well. They've been getting those out as quickly as possible because those are obviously a very immediate need for people. But yes, anything non-perishable, canned goods, boxed foods, water, bottled water, those are always incredibly helpful.
And I know you're a social media guy, so that's another way that people can go. Maybe if they weren't able to catch all of this live shot here, they can go there, they can go on social media, find out some details. Because I asked you when we came in, how did you get all these people to come here in a matter of hours? And you said Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, Houston Dynamo, at Houston Dynamo on Twitter, at BBVA Compass Stadium on Twitter, at BBVA Compass, our naming rights partner and our friends here at BBVA Compass. They've been great to work with as well. Obviously the Red Cross. And don't forget, you can text Harvey to, I believe it's 90999, and donate $10 to the American Red Cross as well. So anything you can do to help. I think all of us are looking for ways to give back, and every little bit helps.
And we had a volunteer come up to us and say, tie the shoes together, which is really good. At first I was like, okay, you know, she's got these requests. And then when you think about it, it's because you don't want to give people mismatched shoes. So again, if you're going to make the effort to come out here to give from your heart, it's such a great gesture. But do a couple little things. Make sure that everything's clean. Make sure that the shoes or any other pairs of matching items are somewhat bound together, right? Yeah.
You know, the natural instinct is just give anything you can, but taking those little steps, tying your shoes together, that's something I wouldn't have thought of until I got out here and was carrying bags of shoes with them falling out. Labeling your bags, you can see over here all of these bags of towels. Just knowing that's what's inside the bag helps these folks that are sorting so much. If you're putting stuff together, put like items in the same bag together.
Okay, and I think that you have something to add, right? You've been working here, and you're a hustler because you're working so hard. Tell me, do you have any details about what people can do to just make your job a little bit easier?
Yes, label. If everything's labeled, it makes it so much easier. These are just, who knows what's in there. So labeling things helps a lot, and putting them in clear bags, if you have clear bags, like empty bags like this, where we can